Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more month than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident. Good day and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Julie Traxler and Corey Harris. Together, Corey and Julie co-founded SB Pace in 2020, a consulting firm with a passion for Main Street America. Growing up in families that own small businesses, they both developed an affinity for entrepreneurial spirit, which makes up the backbone of the economy. Julie and Corey teamed up to form SB Pace to help small businesses create the foundation for a scalable growth through candid analysis, straightforward guidance, and executable tactics. Their proactive approach of SB Pace provides businesses the opportunity to plan for the unknown by empowering entrepreneurs with their proprietary processes and approach. SB Pace significantly increases value in small business. Corey has a passion for small business. With over 20 years of experience helping business owners achieve success, Corey knows exactly how to guide clients through the essentials of business ownership. Corey completed his undergraduate degree at Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University and completed his master's at Virginia Commonwealth University. Corey is an expert at process planning, execution, and disaster I can't even pronounce the word. It just goes to show this is live, right? There, thank you, Corey. That's what teamwork's all about. Yes. Julie has 20 years working as a coach, consultant, and holding various leadership positions within Fortune 500 companies. Julie went to school at Drexel University, is certified in project management, change management, leadership development, mergers and acquisitions, and coaching. Julie's areas of expertise include planning, execution, communication, team building, exit planning, leadership development, acquisition strategy, and change management. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Julie and Corey. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share some of your life journey.
Thanks for having us, Dwight.
Yeah, thanks, Dwight.
We sound really impressive in that intro.
I know. Did you write that?
She did. She did. You know, and I was gonna ask her if she'd be my copywriter as well. So, honestly, this is. I think you guys are going to be episode 50, so it'll come out in 2-3 weeks. And I usually take people's bios and rewrite them. I usually don't like them. This is the first time I haven't changed. So, good job, Julie.
Thank you.
Nice work.
You're welcome. So, people that are going to utilize SB Pace. You got a copywriter too. There you go.
There you go. Let's not let Cheryl Devon hear that.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Cheryl. No hate mail. Okay. Julie and Corey, for me, a person's origin story is so important, really the catalyst for where we end up in our lives. And, one of the reasons I got into making the origin story a focus of my podcast is all the logistics of your business and everything else means nothing if people can't connect to you, if they don't feel that you're real, that you haven't gone through trials and tribulations. And Marvel and Star Wars was one of the most irritating things for me when it comes to the origin. They start in the middle and they go backwards, and they have been doing that since I was a kid. And when I started podcasting, I realized I really want to know what makes them tick. Because my clients in the last 19 years in my business have told me one of the things they enjoy the most is how we can connect. And we talk about, childhood. We talk about the trials of life. So starting with you, Julie, and then you, Corey, of course, what key things from your childhood to adulthood that led you to where you're at currently?
Well, that's Such an interesting question, because one of the things that I find myself thinking about a lot is, so I grew up, out in the country, big farm, like lots of acreage, not a lot of farming, but a lot of acreage with, pasture and creeks and, just ponds and all sorts of stuff. And so I spent a lot of time outside. And I have a lot of siblings, but I spent a lot of time outside playing alone. And always pretending that I was the boss, right? I can remember, when I was like 5 or 6 years old, and I've told this story on our podcast many times where, I literally made a pot of coffee, and it was like one of those old, like put it on the stove percolator type coffee makers. And I had no idea how to make coffee, but I made this cup of coffee, and I poured myself a cup of coffee, walked around outside with this cup of coffee that was really just brown water with coffee grounds in it, drank it like a boss, and pretended that I was the boss of a hospital. I was not a doctor. I was not a surgeon. Everybody that worked in that hospital reported to me. So I was basically the chief of staff. I used to do that all the time. And I would climb trees, and I would be like the person who was in charge of like anything that happened in the trees, like, and always by myself. And as I, grew up and got into my career, I have found that I am pretty much, I have an expiration date with almost every company I've ever been with, where if I don't leave within like 3 or 4 years, I'm going to get fired. Like, I have been fired more than most people have the number of jobs they've had. So, and I used to be really embarrassed about that. And it was really hard for me to admit that, how frequently I got fired. But now I realize I just got fired all the time because, as Tony Watley says, I'm pretty much unhireable. Like, I don't want to work for anyone else. I want to work for myself. And thank God the universe kept delivering that message to me that I shouldn't be working for other people and that I just needed to have my own company.
Yeah, that's amazing. I like the fact of playing alone and pretending to be a boss. And I could see you in a little white coat walking around the coffee
cup of coffee.
Yeah, just being the boss, eh? So that was basically showing people that you want to be a boss.
Thankfully, I've gotten much better at making coffee.
Yeah, when you said you got fired a lot, yeah, that's just like you said, it's just a huge indicator, as Tony would say, you're just unhireable, right? I know myself, I've been an entrepreneur now for just about 30 years, and I couldn't imagine being in a job. I couldn't imagine being in a 9 to 5. I couldn't relate to that, and it's going to offend some people, but the broken mindset of being stuck in a job on that hamster wheel just drives me crazy. And when I was looking to get into my first business, because I had another business prior to this, I was confused as to where my place was. And I bet you both find that a lot when you're talking to people. They're stuck between that phantom zone of being at a job or taking the risk and being in business, and they don't know what to do. So, companies like yourself, both of you, is imperative to make sure that people don't feel trapped and that they have to be at a job, because there's not a lot of support out there. Let's be real. So Corey, my friend, tell me a little bit about yourself from when you were a little guy. I assume you had hair at one time, though.
I did have hair at one point.
He had a mullet once.
Just checking.
Yeah. I did have a mullet, but that was part of a Halloween costume.
Was it green? Was the hair green?
No. I just, when I left, when I was in high school and I was getting ready to go to college, I knew that there was going to be an 80s themed party in my future at some point. So I just started growing out my hair, and then the time arrived and I was able to cut it into a mullet. And then I've been bald ever since, but no, growing up, I was, extremely independent, as a child. And that's just something that's still who I am today. I like doing things by myself. I like being by myself, working by myself, etc. And I don't really like being told what to do. But like, even when I was, a kid, and I don't know however old I was, but, I, at some point when I was, 2 or something, I don't, like I said, don't know the age. excuse me, I just declared that I was done wearing diapers. And my mom was like, wait, what? And I'm like, yeah, I'm done. And that was that. Potty trained myself and there I went. So that's kind of who I am and who I've always been. And I've never really had like a traditional career. The closest thing was when I was working with Julie at that food distributor. But even then, it wasn't like your normal 9 to 5 where you show up at the same office and all that. It was a lot of travel, kind of made my own schedule, kind of just one of the fun things about that team is we kind of just did whatever we want. We had one guy on our team, like he came up with his own title, like regularly. It's like, oh, that's what you're doing now. Okay, cool. Did that come with a pay raise?
Yes.
But I went to school at Virginia Tech for engineering and realized that I didn't want to be an engineer. So I had always worked in restaurants. I had been in, food service for a while, and I was currently working in a restaurant when I was in college. And I realized I'm like, well, why don't I just go to school for this, which was essentially a big waste of money because you don't need a college education to work in restaurants. But I did that. I got my degree in hospitality and tourism management, managed a few places in Blacksburg. And then here in Richmond, I was a partner in a small chain of coffee shops. And then that's when I left there. I got burned out of the restaurant industry. I left there. That's where I met Julie, was in working for that food distributor. And then, after that's kind of, here we are now. We decided that we no longer wanted to try and find jobs or, work for other consulting agencies or anything like that. So we started our own.
That's awesome. I like the fact that, you talk about body training yourself. I know that shouldn't trigger, but it does. It makes me think about one of my kids that pretty much out of my 5 that did the same thing one day, just not wearing this damn thing. I'm going into the big boy or big girl body, right? So, and we talked about coffee. There's a theme here because Julie talked about coffee too. There's a theme here. Like business, you have to have coffee or you're just not going to succeed, I think. But you talked about going to Virginia Tech and that you realized you didn't want to be an engineer. I was in my second year of engineering school for electronics and not really sure what I wanted to do. And when I graduated, started in that industry, was good in that industry, but it was working for somebody else. It's back to that 9 to 5 thing. And I just didn't like answering to other people. I'm a pretty independent person. And I had to sit in boardrooms, answer questions. Okay, go do this. And then, over the PA system, come on in back to the boardroom or come here, come there. You feel like a sheep when you're in a career, in a job. And I realized electronics really wasn't my thing. It was a catalyst though for me to start my first business, which was a computer company, along with a consulting firm. But I agree with what you said, though. You made a comment that you really don't need college to do some of the things that we do. Yes, school is important in university, and I have a couple questions in regards to that to see what your guys' opinion is. But so many people believe that the only path that you have is going to school, and that's the only way you can be successful. And both of you have proven that school is great, but tenacity and drive and wanting to be your own boss is a catalyst and key to having your own business. So I appreciate you talking about that. What was it like being a partner in coffee shops? Like, was that a stressful situation? Is that why you left?
It was. My partner and I, let's just say we didn't see eye to eye. So we did not get along well. And like, we made it work for about 4 years, but there was just a point where like I was working, 80, 90 hours a week, getting paid next to nothing. And not only that, like I couldn't find the resources or pay for the resources that I needed to help grow the business. And I was just kind of stuck, like just miserable. So I was like, you know what, I'm done. So just kind of wiped my hands of that and left. And yeah, I learned a lot of things, doing that, but by and large, I love working in restaurants. I'm actually working on opening one right now. And coffee shops, cafes, it's just a different environment than restaurants. And I didn't like that. I like the full service restaurant. I like that feel. And so that was just one of the things that I just knew I was in the wrong area of that industry.
Yeah, so partnership can be good as long as you're in the right vehicle, because I owned a pub 11 years ago, actually, in 2010, and I brought on a partner. I funded the project, renovated a current restaurant, pub, and went through all that, but it's the same sort of idea. Didn't quite get along. He was not motivated like me. He was more of the type of person that would sit and drink and visit with everybody, and trying to get the capital to expand and grow it. I eventually sold it after about 8 months and walked away from it. But, partnership is one of the things I wanted to key on too. And we will talk about that, because so many people think partnership is bad. It's not necessarily that it's bad. It's finding a person that's the yin to your yang, and then finding the right vehicle where you can both agree upon and you have your strengths and move the business forward. So he started the SB Pace at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, then wrote a book called Seriously, Now What? A Small Business Guide to Disaster Preparedness. I even said it right this time.
Nice job.
Nailed it.
I'll pat myself in the back for the people watching.
Oh, yeah.
And also started a podcast called Biz Quik. I myself started a new venture in the same time period, wrote a book, started a podcast, however, on my own, with no one to bounce ideas off or to question decisions. What drove you to do this together and also want to accomplish all that you have in such a short period of time? Plus, what advice can you give listeners to avoid pitfalls when dealing with a partner?
Those are some great questions. I think, when we started SB Pace, we had both been consulting for other companies and the pandemic hit, and we had a lot of friends and family, a lot of people in our network that were small business owners. So we thought, we both had savings. So we're like, let's take some time and just call on people and make sure they're okay. Right. And this is the origin story of SB Pace. So we're making phone calls and how can we help? And do you need any help with figuring out your financials? How are you positioned? Like any help with ideas on pivots? And things were changing so quickly with COVID at that time. Nobody knew what was going to happen next. I mean, we still don't know what's going to happen next, but there was a lot of confusion and so many unknowns. And small business owners, it really has felt like for the last 18 months have just been penalized over and over and over again, right? So we realized fairly quickly that what we were doing was something that there was a genuine need for. So we decided to officially start the business. And when, and we had talked before we started making phone calls to friends and family about writing a book. And that I think was probably the most interesting experience of what we did. We had two totally different
ideas. I like Corey's face when you said that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't use the word interesting.
Well, so here's the funny thing, right? So I feel like I've known him forever. And he really is the yin to my yang. But it wasn't until we started writing the book together that I realized this dude is a bully. Like I had no idea. And he would tell me I'm a bully. And I never saw it. I never saw that side of him until we started writing a book. And I was like, oh, damn, he's a bully. Like literally we worked with a guy to help us map out the whole book. And then we wrote it. And so we had like this entire outline done. And when we were building the outline, we were on maybe day 2 and I was going to quit. I was like, I'm not writing a book with this guy. Like, cause it was like any idea I had didn't matter. He just bulldozed over it. Like, no. And what's funny is when we finished and had the outline of the book that we ended up writing was not even close to what I thought we were going to write. And it was exactly what he thought the whole time. He's like, I don't know why we paid that guy to do that, to help us with that, because that's what I thought we were going to do the whole time. But so to answer your question on, I don't think we realized we were doing that much. I think it always felt like, at least to me, like we could have been doing more. Like there was more that we could do. We had nothing but time on our hands, right? I mean, the world was pretty much stopped. And so I remember one time, and I don't even remember who said it to me. I don't know if you remember, Corey, but I was talking to somebody and they said, do you ever do anything at the shallow end of the pool? And I was like, I don't understand what you mean. And they're like, okay, so you just decide like, I mean, we're gonna start a business. Then you're like, we're gonna write a book. Then you're like, we're gonna start a podcast. We're gonna launch a course. Like you just dive headfirst into absolutely everything. And I was like, huh. And then at one point, like last fall, I was talking to reconnected with a friend I hadn't talked to in months, maybe like a year or two. And she asked me like, hey, what have you been up to? And I was like, oh, I moved to Richmond. We're doing this, me and Corey doing this. And I kind of rattle off all the things that we've been doing since March, right? So this is like September. I'm talking to her. We started a business, wrote a book, launched a podcast. We have a course that's coming out, like this online academy. And she was like, you've done all that since March? And I was like, yeah. And in my head, I'm like, God, I know there has to be more, right? This says so much about me. I'm like, I know there's more. I know there's more. That feels so weak. And she goes, I've gotten out of my pajamas like twice since March. And I was like, oh, damn. Okay.
That is a resounding story though that I hear from so many people. And I know I have a lot of great mentors in my life, and they've always told me no matter what's going on around you in the planet, where are you going to be 1 year from now? And most importantly, I want you to look back. Where were you a year ago? Where were you 3 years ago? Everybody always talks about, because when I goal set with my clients, I also really focus on where they were, because even though the past isn't indicative of the future, I want them to resoundingly understand that if they were the same place 3 years ago and 1 year ago, just sitting there isn't going to make them move forward. Like your friend being in her pajamas, so I just kept on telling myself that. And I remember March of last year having Tony question us in the society, and which he had just created March of last year, right? Beginning of March of 2020. And he said, where are you guys going to be? And I look at all the, and the reason I bring this up is there was a couple hundred of us. And then I look a year later, how many of that group, which wasn't that big, how many actually, walked the talk, actually did what they said they were going to do, didn't sit in their pajamas for the last year, and actually made a difference, and not just other people's lives, in their own lives. I know one of the things we don't do is we don't self-reflect on ourselves, and we're not proud enough of ourselves. We always hear people say, oh, we're proud of what you've done, but we need to start telling that stuff to ourselves too, because you guys have accomplished a lot, right? A tremendous amount. And for you to even feel that you should have had more to say is just an indicator that you're a driven person, and that's great. So look where you both are. Corey's very independent. You're independent. It's really refreshing to see though, that with your yin and yang, that you guys are able to not kill one another, right? That you're able to work forward. Well, I see in Julie's face that still isn't off the table though.
I can tell you exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking to myself, it doesn't even feel like I know we have disagreements, but we really don't fight that often. There's not a lot of really big things, like things that he's like really committed to, and like this is like a hill for him and he'll die on it. It's usually not a hill for me. And I trust him implicitly. So if he's like, we need to do this, I'm like, okay. And there's just some areas where he's just way smarter and stronger than I am and has much more experience, and I'll defer to him in those areas. And sometimes it's nice to know that I don't have to, not everything is on me, right? That's the real beauty of having a partner, is I don't have to make every decision, and he's never wrong.
That's accurate.
so that's a real benefit, right?
Yeah.
Well, go on, Corey.
I was going to say, but one of the things that, when it comes to partnerships, when it comes to just working in general, and it's hard for people to do, but for me, it's easy to separate your personal self from the business. So if somebody tells me that they don't like X, Y, or Z, or this wasn't done well, for the most part, I probably know that I maybe half-assed that one thing or whatever it was to begin with, but it's not gonna, I'm not gonna lose sleep over it. And a lot of people will lose sleep when their business gets criticized, because they're so wrapped up in their business that they take everything personally. And that's the one thing, like if I give Julie advice, it's not because I'm trying to be mean and hurt her feelings, or, you know, if I'm critiquing something, it's because I think it could be done better or different or whatever it is. Julie might take things more personally than me.
That's because he's a robot, Dwight.
Definitely takes everything more personally than me, but vice versa. If she comes back, I mean, I remember one time, like, we were writing, so like our process for a lot of what we do is one person will take like the first stab at whatever it is, and the other person will follow up and edit and review whatever. And I remember like she was writing blogs and I was just going in and just like editing the blogs. Like if I didn't think something sounded correctly or whatever, I would just go in and change it. She got pissed off about that. And so she was editing one of my blogs and like went in and like tried to be mean. And I was just like, I know you were trying to hurt me somehow, but
no, was that the blog where I asked you, who are you mad at?
Yeah. But like you went in, you're like, I'm just going to go in. I'm like, good, just go in and change stuff. You don't need my permission. Like the point, we're on the same team. We want to put out the best, whatever it is. So I'm not going to get upset if you don't like what I did, you know, we'll go in and change it. We'll make it better.
It's amazing though, listening to you both, because I wish I did have, as I mentioned when I was asking the question, that I had somebody to bounce ideas off. And that's why I belong to, over the last year, I've joined specific masterminds to help specific places in my life to level up, not because I'm not capable, because I don't want to be the know-it-all of everything, thinking that I know it all, and not have people question what I'm doing, so that I'm always growing, expanding, climbing, and doing what's right for my clients, for the people that I'm coaching and working with. And I'm always intrigued when I find people that are partners that make it work. And, you know, people listening and watching, partnerships, I have had partnerships. I've never had 100% successful partnership, because I had a partner with one of my businesses with a computer company I had before I started my consulting firm. And we just had different visions. We had different things that we wanted to do. I'm more like, I guess I'm kind of a balance between you two. When I listen to you, Corey, I'm a type person, I'm very blunt. This is just, well, this is what it is. And somebody doesn't like it, they get upset. I don't necessarily take it personal. I'll just be going like, why are you up in my face? Why are you in my grill? Why are you so upset? I was just saying something that maybe we should do this. Or took the initiative to put this together, and you're looking at it and all you're doing is attacking me. So I get it. But on the flip side, I guess I had to become that type of person, because I was a person at one point in time that would take things personally, get butthurt and going, you know, like, why don't you like anything I'm doing? And when really in reality, they were just having a conversation and they were just trying to weed out what the solution or end result was. So I don't know, Corey, you said you've been this way your whole life. I've developed into that type of person. I started out as Julie, became you, and now I'm somewhere in the middle. So, right, I could have been your guys' child.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know if the timeline works out on that, but
but look at it, we're bald.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So go on.
Well, and I was going to say, like, one of the things, like when Julie was talking about all of the things that we've done since we've started, and one problem that I think a lot of people have is they're more talk than they are action. Like, we say we're going to write a book, so we write a book. People are like, wait, you just wrote a book? Well, yeah, we said we were going to do it, so we did it. And like, people are blown away sometimes. I mean, we had that one person who we hired, that consultant, who said to Julie, like, basically something along the lines of like, you do exactly what you say you're going to do. How do you do that?
Oh my God. Yeah. We hired an expert to help us with marketing. And she literally said to me, every time you say you guys are going to do something, you do it. Like, how can you teach me how to be accountable? And I was like, wait, we're paying you. Like, what?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I've had so many and people too that they're not who they say they are. They're a facade.
Yeah.
But we have so many of those people in our lives who are like, oh, I want to change. I want to get in shape. I want to, go back to school. I want a new career, whatever it is.
Start a business.
Yeah. And they talk about it. It's like, well, go do it. They're like, well, now's not the time. Things aren't working out. I got to wait on this, that. And they're like, no, just do it. Like, create a plan and do it.
Yeah.
When's the time? That's what I say to
Now.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah. When's the time? And they have more, and I've told my kids this since they were little, and they tell people this all the time. My one daughter tells her own kids it now. You can have success or excuses. It's very simple. Pick one. You can't have both. And there's a difference too as well. I don't know if you both agree. There's a difference between excuses and reasons, right? I could have a conversation with somebody and some people will get butt hurt because they don't like what I'm saying, and they'll come up with excuses when I'll tell them, well, how about you reframe and look at it as this way? This is your reason. It's not an excuse. Now, how can we get past this reason? Because people using that word as a very negative anchor on their mindset to use the word excuses. So I try to train them. What are your reasons for not wanting to do it? Not what's your excuses, because society has made that word to me a very negative connotation. So I don't know if you agree with that or not, but what are your thoughts about reasons and excuses?
Well, I guess I've never really thought about it like that before. And to me, it's probably, Dwight, you're not going to like my answer, but
okay, that's fine.
They're the same thing, right? Like you can have a reason, but the reality is if you really want it, you're going to make it happen. And, one of the things that I think we learned from working with clients since we started SB Pace is this. A lot of people have the desire to make a change or to do something, but they don't have the motivation, and you have to have both. Because if you don't have both, then you're not getting anywhere. And I think it's easy to, like, desire will get you started, but motivation is what's going to get you to the finish line.
And I mean, the other thing is, especially when it comes to starting businesses, is for people who have never done it, it seems like this extremely overwhelming, like, involved process. And there are a lot of things that you need to do, but you don't have to do them all on the same day. And, people, they have the excuse of, I don't have the time, I don't have the money, or whatever it is. It's like, that's fine. Let's build a plan to find the time. Let's build a plan to find the money. The people look at business plans as like this giant barrier to entry to business. And in reality, they're easy to write. They don't have to be these long, drawn out 96-page, whatever. And in fact, like, if you're taking that to a bank, they're going to laugh at you, like, because they want to look at like the first 3 pages and that's it. If you're doing something super involved, like you've got some new technology or whatever, like, yeah, you probably have to get a little more involved. But if you're just opening up like an online retail, or you're providing a service or whatever, it's not complicated to get a business started. It's complicated to keep it going, but to get your doors open and to say that you are a business owner, it's not hard.
Yeah, I agree. But yes, back to what you were saying, Julie. Yes, they are similar. It's just I try to reframe the way people use words. And I've found in my own practice, when I can get them to stop thinking of the word excuse and reason, they're more open, at least for me, to actually putting a plan of attack together. And back to what Corey's saying, to put a simple plan together. And I look at even your conversation about hiring somebody that asked you how to do it when they should be telling you. I run into that time and time again with so many people being a facade, not knowing what it is. We see that all the time within our circle of friends. They talk about the fact of, people hanging a shingle and not really knowing what they're doing. And Corey, back to what you were saying, a 3-page business plan, that sounds just perfect. I've sat with people that have paid thousands, tens of thousands, and had somebody put a business plan together for them, and it's like half-inch thick.
And
it's just ridiculous. The banks don't, because I know too many banker friends. They want something very simple, because I work with businesses and helping them to get their numbers together, and they're so overwhelmed and said, oh, that's going to be tough. No, it's not. We'll do it on an Excel spreadsheet. It'll take me an hour, 2 hours, depending on how many numbers. We'll figure it out. We'll know what your bottom line is. We'll know your inflows, outflows. You'll take this to the bank and they'll love it. Oh no, we need, no charts, no bar graphs, no this, that. We don't need that. People, if you're listening, don't overcomplicate it. Keep it simple, like Corey's talking about. It isn't that hard. Reach out to Corey and Julie and say, hey, help me with a 2-3 page business plan and to get started. Procrastination isn't part of a business plan. It's action, right? Like Corey was saying, doing the talk, if you're talking about something, pardon me, do the walk. So you both are highly educated as well, have extensive experience that you bring to the table. I know many wanting to be an entrepreneur think the only way to be in business is to attend college or university. How important is education regarding being an accomplished entrepreneur? Is it a make or break situation and a requirement to have a diploma or a degree?
I don't think so. Personally, I think in some ways the education might hinder you. They don't teach you in college, at least, that how to be an entrepreneur. I think it's a part of it is, I think you're either born with some of that desire or not, but I also think it's learned.
It totally is. I mean, I got a business degree and they tell you nothing about actually starting a business, at least in the degree that I got. And it is unfortunate. I mean, so many, to be an entrepreneur, you don't need a degree, depending upon what it is that you're doing. If you want to be a doctor, obviously you need to get some sort of education, but that degree has become this barrier to entry for a lot of businesses, and people won't take you seriously for whatever reason, because you didn't spend tens of thousands of dollars for no reason. Like me, I had one semester, my entire college career, that was actually worth pretty much anything. Granted, I mean, I had a couple of accounting courses and things like that were helpful, but for my degree, one semester was the only semester that was worth anything, in my opinion. And people think that you need to have an MBA to start a business or whatever. I didn't learn anything about starting a business in my MBA. The most I got out of my MBA was networking, was just meeting people who I would have not otherwise met. So yeah, it's not an education. You will learn everything you need to learn, on the job, basically.
Mm-hmm. It's really, really on the job training. And I think there are certainly elements of a degree that help, but for the most part, when you are in school, we're really taught through our education system here in the United States to memorize shit and just then test on it and then sort of forget it. Right. And, my college experience it's very non-traditional in that, I went to 8 different colleges and I got asked to leave my first one after a semester. See, there's a trend with me, Dwight. Get fired. They asked me to leave college, and what's funny is that, as the things are happening, it's only recently that I'm not embarrassed about those stories. That's just part of who I am and part of my experiences. But it literally took me 15 years to graduate college, because I would go and then I would quit and I would work and then I would go. And when I graduated, I was a VP of engineering. When I started my final semester, I was a VP of engineering. So I didn't even need a college degree to be a VP of engineering for a software company. And I just think it's probably the thing that I lean on the least. It's the thing I talk about the least. I think the thing I miss the most is that I don't have the experiences. When Corey talks about, so much of who he is wrapped up in his years in Blacksburg at Tech and his relationships and friendships. And I listen to those stories and I just laugh. And sometimes I'm a little envious because I don't have them. I don't have any stories like that at all, except for the first school that I got kicked out of. Right. I got a lot of stories like that from there. But for the most part, for me, it was just, I just wanted to finish. It was the means to an end. And I wanted to finish without any debt. And I was, for a long time, wasn't sure I was ever going to finish. And here's the best part. Corey will tell you, single-handedly, the thing that I am the worst at in this business is writing. My grammar is off the charts bad. You know what my degree was in? Communications.
But, I see that and hear that quite often, though, that, people go into things, and even what Corey was saying about one semester, I look back at my schooling and think to myself, I was proud And I held on to that for so many years because there was 185 people that started in my electronics engineering program and 18 of us that graduated. And I used to strut around, oh, I was one of those people that made it because I was married at the time too, and kids, and, you know, just the struggle, just the grind. And I look back at it, and one of the courses I liked the most, because this ties into what Corey was saying, one of the courses I liked the most was the technical writing course, which is something you're weak at, Julie, when you talk about grammar. And I was a top guy in our class, but it wasn't even involving electronics or engineering. It was just technical writing. We had to learn how to stand in front of people, present on whatever topic he decided to give us. We had to write and be able to stand up there without, you know, back then it was the old, what do they call them? You know, we had the old plastic sheets and you put the light on, and you stick it up, and it broadcast before PowerPoint, right? Had the old transparencies. But, you know, it's nice to listen to both of you and how different you are, but yet how there's similarities in my own life. But I know myself, I think the education system, and I've talked about this on many podcasts, the education system I find is a giant, obviously everybody knows this, or if you don't, listening and watching, that you don't realize schools are a business. It's not designed to be something to collapse timeframes in your life. They look to have programs that are really, really long, so that you're spending a bunch of money taking useless crap courses that don't do shit for your life. And then you come out of school with giant student loan debts. And I know, Julie, you mentioned you wanted to come out and not have that debt. I look at how many people have debt when they come out of school, and really all that certificate does, whether it's a diploma or a degree, tells me, because I've hired lots of people in my life, tells me that you have the ability to learn. Doesn't tell me that you know shit, right? And it's kind of neat, Julie, that you're a VP of something and you're not even done school yet. It just proves so, because I've done things in my life that I look at people that say to me, what do you have this certification? And there's like let's say five certifications I could get in my industry. And I have one of them. And I did that because that certification made sense to me. And they constantly have things that I do on a yearly basis, continuing education stuff to help level me up and be a better elder planning counselor. And that's what it is. And I look at all the other designations that these people have in their business cards. They have their name, and there's all these little things that nobody gives two shits about. They don't understand what that acronym means. People want to know that you are trustworthy, that you're a person of action, that you're honest, sincere. They didn't teach that in school, did they, for you, Corey or Julie, how to build good relationships with people? They don't teach that shit.
They don't. Yeah, definitely is not taught. It's something that you learn. I mean, I wouldn't be who I am or what I am today without going to Virginia Tech, but the school had nothing to do with it. It's the people I met. It's the experiences I had.
The networking. Yeah,
everything that happened basically outside of class, you know, is
same with me.
Made me
same
today.
with me. I still have some phenomenal. I had a couple great instructors. You know, I was a married, kids in my second year. I got married in between first and second. And I remember going to instructors, and I was just like, you know, my brain isn't focusing. We got a young child at home, but baby, we got all this stuff going on. And they were very kind. And I've stayed friends with those people for years after the fact, and stayed in touch with them, got referrals from them, etc., just because of their kindness and the relationship. So your networking aspect you talk about is so prevalent. I stayed in contact with some of these people for 30 years since I graduated. And I wish that school would have taught me more of real life experiences. And I think that's why that technical writing course was so prevalent in my mindset. It taught me to get over the fear of standing in front of people and talking it, and which is a skill that I've brought forward in my life into other ventures. Whereas most of the other courses I took defined me in a certain way. So I agree with you what you're saying, Corey. I'm not bashing school. I'm just saying that school needs to be restructured and done better. They waste a lot of our lives. Life's in session. We only have so many years we're going to live. Collapse time frames. So I'm more of a person that, for the listeners, I really believe in technical schools. And that's what I attended. And here's the difference. Technical school, my electronics engineering program was 2 years. I had to work my balls off, right? Think about it. 18 people graduated out of 185 that started. My other friends went and took the 4-year degree university program, right? And get out of school, we both go to work, and I end up having some of those, not necessarily those same people, I'm their boss, because my technical school taught me how to think on my feet, collapse time frames, made it so that the cream rose to the top and the rest stayed below, right? And that's the why I'm a big fan of technical schools. I don't know how it works in the US necessarily, but up here we have universities, we have colleges, and then we have technical colleges, which take the best of both, slam it in, and the people that can make it through, right? Not necessarily the best. I'm not saying that everybody that I graduated with were rock stars, because certainly I know some of them, they aren't. They're stuck in that job mentality. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be entrepreneurs, but I thoroughly enjoy the fact that school helped me meet a lot of great people. It taught me what I didn't want, that's for sure. I don't know about if that's the same for both of you, but it taught me definitely what I didn't want. It taught me as an adult now, of, you know, a parent of 5 kids, I don't push my kids to go to school. I encourage them depending on what their personality is. There's a couple of them that I've encouraged, right? And you talked about, Corey, that you definitely have to go to school for certain things, like a doctor. My one daughter is a nurse. You have to go to school for that, right? She's an RN. Stuff like that, you really can't collapse time frames, especially when they're dealing with your lives. You want to make sure that they're very well taught and educated. So anything else that you can think of in regards to education that you'd like to share before we move on?
Well, the only thing that I want to bring, I use this with restaurants, but it applies to most industries. And you know, if you have 2 candidates, they're both, let's say 22, 23 years old. One has 4 years of experience in your industry and one has a 4-year degree in your industry. Who you're going to hire? Probably the person who has experience. So, you know, what is the point of that degree then if experience is more important?
And how many people, I've heard this resoundingly, you probably both can agree, will say, well, if you don't hire me, how am I supposed to get experience? Time and time again, because I was one of those people too. I remember one of my long-term mentors that actually got me into going into electronics. And then when I decided I didn't want to be in that, he pushed me into finance. Was the type of person that he was always the type of person that realized that if you didn't give somebody a shot, they'd never have experience, and what good are they? And he told me one time, he says, every time I hire somebody that has experience, depending on how long their experience, it's actually a detriment to my business. And here's why he said that: because they're set in their ways, and then he has to reprogram them. Or depending on where the experience was, you know, what they had to share or what they learned really wasn't a benefit. So he started thinking to himself, you know, it's going to take a little bit more effort, but I'd rather hire the newbie, the green person, and help teach them what I want, my systems based on my company, and then move forward. And that stuck with me. So I started doing that myself with even my consulting business. When I'd hire people to go into companies and we'd take apart their IT departments, I'd look for people that were green, that were hungry, that I knew that I could actually train them what I wanted, and I didn't have to retrain them for what they thought I wanted, if that makes sense.
It does. That used to be the number one skill that I would look for. The number one trait, not skill, trait was, are they hungry? Because I'll take somebody who's hungry any day over somebody who is highly educated. I want, assuming they're mutually exclusive in candidates. I want somebody who I know is going to work for it and who wants it really, really bad. I don't care what their degree of it or what their level of education is.
Now you can see it in people's eyes. I can see it with their body language. And the worst is I used to do a lot of hiring and interviews for a couple different companies I consulted for. They asked me if I'd be part of their hiring team. And the person that came in all polished, right? Too polished. Do you understand what I mean? There was no roughness around the edge. And I guess it would be right or wrong, I'd be skeptical. Like, what are you hiding? All right. What's, if I peel back the onion, what am I going to see? You're just too polished. So, sorry for anybody listening if I ever interviewed you and didn't hire you and you were a great person. But to me, I can't stand people that are too polished. I want to see that hunger in their eyes. I want to see somebody that, has some story to share with me. I'd ask people questions, and you know how they have those methodical interviews that you can have where people ask specific questions because they think it's the perfect way to hire people. I wanted to throw those out the window, and I did it some places where they'd ask me to do interviews for them for their firms, and I'd throw it out the window and I'd just have conversations with people. And some of the best people I hired were those that were rough around the edges that we just start talking. I'd ask them about their lives and what's going on. Oh, I got a wife at home. I got a husband at home, or whatever the case may be, because I wanted to connect with them because I knew if they could be vulnerable. And I didn't realize until the last few years of my life that I was actually attracted to people that were willing to be vulnerable, right? Until I realized that. And when I did realize that, I became better at relationship building myself because I was expecting them to be vulnerable. I wasn't really doing it. Now it's a yin and yang situation. So I find, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, when you think about it, the traditional interview process, or the way that most people approach interviews, is very similar to the way that we approach education, where it's like, let me memorize the questions that I think I'm going to be asked on the test, or that I think I'm going to be asked in the interview. And you're just playing back these rehearsed answers or these memorized answers versus the real life conversation.
Yeah. But we have a lot of work to do out there, and that's why people such as yourself and I need to continue to go out and just help one person, one group at a time level up and realize that they have options, alternatives. Some people it's education, some people it's not. It's all good as long as you're driven. And when you talk, you do the walk, right? That's all that matters. I don't care if you want to get a degree, if you come out and you're rough around the edges, just be driven. Don't sit back and camp. So many work nonstop in the initial years of starting their business and neglect their family, friends, and basically they have no personal life. They feel they must hustle and grind and think if they stop even for a moment, things will fall apart. The casualty for this thinking, though, in many cases is their personal relationships. How does one achieve some sort of balance between work and their personal life?
Well, we're probably going to get some different answers here.
Yeah.
That's what I want. That's what I want.
Julie's figured it out yet.
Stop it. I've got it much better. I'll say this. I do not personally believe that. I don't think work-life balance is a thing. Like when you're like, oh, let's have perfect work-life balance. That's just complete crap to me. I think that it's cyclical. Is that the right word? Yeah.
That's a word.
That's a word. I don't know if that's the word you're going for, Julie. It is, there's peaks and valleys to it. And there are times when, look, that first year or two of starting a business, there's a lot to it, right? So you're going to be working long hours. And I can remember when we first started SB Pace, and we would be sitting at Corey's kitchen table until there was a lot of days where we worked till 11, 12 o'clock, like at night, like in the morning. Right. And then you just get up, and I'm much more creative in the morning, and we were writing a book at the same time. So I'd get up at like 5 a.m. and I'd start writing so I could, stay ahead in the chapters. And I said to him at one point, I'm like, there's going to be a day when we're going to miss this. And he's like the business. And I'm like, no, like these long, like this grind, like grinding this out. And he's like, no, there won't. And I mean, there are days when I miss that. I really liked like sort of trying to figure everything out. And there was giant Post-it notes everywhere. And we were kind of mapping out like, what is this thing that we're doing? But I think the most important piece of advice that I could give is this. Like, I don't look for balance, but I know where my limits are. Right. And I know that I'm not good. Like, I can't work 14 days in a row. So I just typically, I do not ever work on Saturdays unless there's something really critical going on. I work every Sunday and I use it as a prep day and a get ahead day and do a lot of client work. And we don't do client calls on Fridays, so we can just work and get stuff done. But for the most part, like I've given up on the notion of having any type of schedule at all during the week, unless like we put it on the calendar. I'm just like, okay, right? Because I mean, we have clients all over the country. We have clients in Hawaii, and so we're, we do calls at, we're still on calls at 8 o'clock at night every night, and that's okay because we chose this. And I would much rather be doing this than wondering when I'm going to get fired from my next job. But I don't look for balance. I just want to make sure that I know where my limits are and that I honor those limits, and I look out for myself. And if I'm like getting too close to the edge, he'll tell me. He'd be like, "You're a little nuts lately. Why don't you take a day off?" So,
Well, sure. And there's that thing, because I don't mind working 7 days a week, but I don't put in full days on the weekends. I'll, answer some emails, do a couple things, whatever, in the morning or the afternoon. But like, I mean, even this past Saturday, knowing that Julie doesn't work on Saturdays, and I did something late Friday night or Saturday morning and sent it over to her, and she's like, "Oh, I'll take a look at this." And I'm like, do we need this done today? Because if not, you don't need to look at it. It can wait till Monday. But it's for me, like, and it kind of goes back to the just not taking things personally. So many people, they like their business is an extension of them. So if their business isn't doing well, or, they feel bad, they guilt themselves into working, these ridiculous hours, when you have to realize that, like, you aren't your business. And yeah, I mean, there are those sleepless nights where you're, wondering how you're going to pay rent next month or whatever it is. I mean, there are things that obviously like affect you personally, but by and large, like putting in that extra hour at the end of the night, working until 11 instead of, 8 p.m. or whatever, like, it's not, how much are you really going to change? Like, how much are you really accomplishing? Because at a certain point, you're just doing work to do work, and you're not actually like accomplishing anything.
Not being productive. Yeah.
Diminishing returns.
Yeah. I love what you both had to say. I don't believe there's a work-life balance either. And, people will say, well, I hear coaches tell people that. I've had mentors in the past tell me, well, you need to work between your work-life balance. And that's a crock. It's literally impossible to have a balance between, like, even when I was running my business and single dad of all the kids still living in the house, I had to do things that needed to happen. I couldn't have my work suffered because my family was more imperative, and I had to learn how to cut work out, because initially it did bother me, oh, I got to do this client stuff, or I got to get this done. Yet I wasn't really present in my personal life with my family because I was worried about work. And I find a lot of people are like that. They're with people, work is, they've left their job or they've left their business, but yet they haven't. Their 6 inches is still connected to it. They're just not connected to their family. And that's about the only thing I work on. Even still today, I don't work on having a perfect work-life balance. It's something like you, Corey. I don't need to work an 8-12 hour day. I can get whatever done, and come the weekend. I used to be that person, though, that would work 14 days, 18 days in a row. And I kind of experienced that again last year when I was deciding, I'm not going to be the same place a year from now that I am now. And I want to do all these things. And I started doing that. I was working 10, 11, 12 days in a row. I'd work from early in the morning till 11 midnight. And one day I woke up and I thought to myself, what the hell am I doing? I could die tomorrow. This can wait till tomorrow. Or like Corey would say, this can wait till Monday. Why do I have to work 7 days a week? Who am I trying to impress? Right? I just need to be the best version of myself. I need to continue to level up. And I stopped living a 168-hour schedule. My listeners that have listened to me talk about it, 168 hours in a week. Most people don't define a week by hours, but it's true. I used to have it scheduled for sleep. I used to have it scheduled. This is when I'm doing this, and this is when I'm doing that. And I'm not against people that do that, but it doesn't work for everybody. All it did was kept me working more and enjoying life less. Not that you can't enjoy work, but there's so much more than work. I don't know. Do you both work a defined schedule? Like Julie, you say that you like getting up early in the morning and don't want to work Saturdays. Corey, what about yourself? Do you have some sort of defined schedule system that you use, that you stick to and adhere to?
Not really. I mean, there's the certain things that I work well with deadlines. So if things need to get done, then, I'd aim on getting them all accomplished by that deadline. But, if it happens at 10 in the morning or 10 at night, it doesn't really matter to me. It's just whenever I feel like getting the work done.
Yeah. The only thing that really gets dictated on our schedule is client calls. Other than that, we just sort of, you fill in the gaps where you need to fill in the gaps. And
I like that. I like the fact of what you said, Corey, too, about deadlines. I'm the same thing. I literally will speak it out loud. I share it with other people. This is what I want to achieve by this date. And I know, being part of the 365 mastermind, Tony, we have him every 2 weeks. He'll say, what are you going to do? Right. Well, for me, I know that 2 Thursdays from now, this is what I said I was going to commit, and I'm going to part freaking oceans to get it done. Now, one day I might work 14 hours. The next day I might put 0 toward it, but I'm going to hit that deadline no matter what. To me, that is my de facto standard. And if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. But, when it comes to a deadline for a client, or, I say I'm going to do something, I will literally tell them, like the client I seen Saturday, okay, I'm going to get all this information together for you that you wanted. I will have it to you Sunday night. And Sunday night came around. I had 90% of it done. I messaged them and saying, I've sent all this off to you. This 10% that I said I was going to get done, here's why I couldn't do it. I need to reach out to somebody on Monday business hours. I can't get this information for you. Response back, thanks so much. And people don't realize, our clients take that for granted. But if you have somebody you're dealing with, listeners, that says they're going to do something and they're constantly falling behind, or they're not doing what they're doing, fire them and move on. That may sound harsh, but it's just like Julie, you were saying, you hired a marketing person that wanted advice on how to do things. That's not a great way to have business, right? They're not going to, she's not going to last long.
no.
So, Julie and Corey, if each of you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
I mean, you definitely need to, like, I goes back to that accountability. Like, you have to care about what you're doing, but you don't need to let it consume your life. So, like, the way that I kind of look at things, like when people, like, they spend all this time stressing over this didn't happen, or this could have been, like, is stressing over it going to change anything? No. So, there's no reason to waste time, calories, whatever it is, caring about something that you can't change. You can only move forward and just do it better the next time.
That's really good advice.
It's very good advice.
I would say this.
I heard just, Julie, I seen a little bit of snidiness in that response. Is there something you want to share?
No, there was no snidiness. That was really good. That was being.
Oh, okay. I was watching. Okay. Just checking.
If one of us is sassy, it's him. It's not me. I'm not the sassy.
I'm glad you cleared that up though, Dwight, because I wasn't sure if she was being serious.
No, I was.
Sorry. I was watching your face and I seen your lip kind of quiver.
Me or Corey?
No, you.
Oh yeah, no. No, I was being sincere.
Okay, that's good.
This is what I would say, and this is, personal. This is from personal experience. And I know Corey will know exactly what I'm talking about. When I think about, sort of that give a heck advice, give a heck mentality, I think it's really important to worry less and think less about what other people are thinking, because chances are good they're not thinking about you at all, right? And to really put that energy towards how you feel or think about yourself, not how other people. Dwight, there's so many times in the past where I held myself back from doing something because I was afraid that people that I used to work with that never liked me and I didn't like them, but I was so sure that they were judging me on what I was doing now with my life. And I thought, so it just held me back from doing things. And now I'm like, I don't care because I'm doing exactly what I want to do. And I couldn't be happier with the decisions that we've made for starting a business and all the things that we've done. And you can think whatever you want, like me, don't care at all. I am going to move on because I've got my people and that's all I need.
You got your tribe, and that's what you've been building and you're continuing to build. And I used to always say this, I don't say it as much as I used to, but I used to tell my kids, they say, well, what is this person thinks about this about me? And even as adults, they'll say this to me about, they care too much about what other people's opinions. And I always said to them, you know what, don't let other people's opinions of you become your reality. Because guess what? You're all butt hurt, you're upset. They're sitting wherever they are. They're not thinking about you. They don't give a crap. They got the rise they wanted out of you, or maybe they don't even know they got a rise out of you, and you're letting it eat you away, right? You're letting it destroy your day, your moment. Just don't give a crap. Please yourself. Obviously, in a partnership, you guys have to work somewhat at pleasing one another, right? But at bottom line, I like that. I see the head nod. Yeah, that's okay. I live here. She lives there. Right. I can change my address. But yeah, so I like what both you said. Thank you so much for the advice. So our time is almost up. I want to respect our listeners and your time. However, before we can move on, can you please tell the listeners how, to reach you? What's the best way?
Everything that anybody would need to know can be found on our website. So that's sbpace.com. We've got our contact form. They can schedule a call. All of our social links are on there. So sbpace.com.
Yeah, everything's there.
I'll make sure it's in the show notes as well, which people can find at giveaheck.com. So thanks for being on Give a Heck, Julie and Corey. I appreciate your time and sharing some of your experiences so others too can learn it is never too late to give a heck. Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.